Veux-tu danser avec moi?
And today we're here to talk about ownership of project files.
This is one of the most common topics that I see come up in the different video producers forums that I'm a part of. People are always asking, hey, what should I do with my raw files? What should I do with my project files? Clients asking for them usually after the fact. The first thing that I always think is that whatever the deliverables are should be determined up front. Usually we have a discovery call right at the beginning of the project where we're asking the client what their needs are. You want to have a good understanding of what's needed before you even jump into the project.
Well, so from my point of view, working in animation, the two big reasons people usually don't want to hand over project files is either they feel like there's sort of processes and procedures embedded in the work that's sort of like proprietary, or they don't want to give away their working methods. And then also just to control usage, like to not have stuff used in a context that's like way outside the scope of the initial project. So the two things I always say, and what's big for me is ask why the client wants them and try and look for a win-win. Like for us, the two biggest things of why clients want them is a lot of times it's just to like update things down the road. Like a lot of times it's just like legal lines or copyright notices. We'll render stuff down. So it's giving them a version of the project files that's actually easier and more suited to their needs. So it's actually a win for them. And then it's taking out anything that could be considered sort of like proprietary stuff. And then in some cases it's they're just like, it's just our due diligence. A lot of agencies are just required to keep them. But in terms of usage, like that's specified in the contract. My big thing that I always tell people is try and capture the value of what you're doing up front. Like if you're creating a template or something that's going to be reused multiple times, you're designing a mascot, a brand thing that's really going to have a wide usage, capture that value up front. But I don't feel like project file charging is a great place to try and capture that value. And just I really think that people get it confused that usage and IP rights is a very separate thing from project files. So really try and separate out those two kind of convos.
When we do deliver project files, there's a certain amount of conforming that needs to be done so that the other person working with it is going to be able to work with the file. You have to consider plugins. If we use certain plugins or scripts, then they're not going to be able to work with the files. So it may change the way that we are working if we know that we have to hand it off where someone else is going to continue to work on the project. And there's some extra work and considerations around that. The last thing that you said about versioning, typically we know that up front, and in most of our commercial projects, we're delivering not just the master, but also stems with the audio where the sound effects, the music, and the dialogue are on 3 separate tracks, so that if we want to version in a different language, they can pull out those elements. Similarly, we'll deliver a clean version with no graphics, so if the logo of the client gets updated later, they can use the master video and drop in the new logo. So there are ways where you're not giving them the project file, but you're giving them the locked in assets that they need. The last thing I would say about that is, sometimes as a producer, we're hiring freelance VFX or graphic artists. Like we've hired you to do some work for us before. And in those cases, we might ask for the project files, and it's simply like, we want to have an archive of it. If we ever do any changes, I'm going to call you to work on it. But I want to make sure that for our, as you said, due diligence, that we have a backup of it in case your system goes down.
Yeah. And honestly, my experience has been that 99.99% of the time, the clients will come back to you for the changes anyways, even if they have the project file. So a lot of times I feel like people are maybe stressing over a case that doesn't come up a lot.
All right, so have we solved the project file dilemma? I think we have some good actionable steps here. Get it sorted up front.
And ask why they need it, and try and find a win-win that sort of works for everyone without stepping on anyone's usage rights or giving away proprietary stuff.
And it's totally acceptable to charge for project files in those cases where there will be additional work done to prepare them.